Jesus was asked, and we read about this in Matthew 7 in the form of the Golden Rule, but we also read it in Mark about we call it the Great Command, where Jesus is asked, of all the rules, of all the laws of this kingdom that you keep talking about, of all the laws, what is the greatest? And Jesus gives us the Great Command. And he says, the greatest is this, love. Love God, love others, and implied is love yourself. Right? Love. In all the ways you can, the answer is love. And so that is called the great Christian ethic. Philosophers, historians, and theologians all agree this is the one distinctive thing about Jesus' teaching, is the depth and the level of love that we're called to, that Jesus modeled for us. Love on our own sacrifice. Love unto our own death. Love unto our own. That level is very uniquely Christian. And so everything that Jesus teaches is asking people to embrace this kingdom virtue, this kingdom ethic of agape, unconditional, sacrificial love. And here's the purpose. Everything Jesus is about is restoring right relationships between God and us and others and us. If we look at it that way, this Christian ethic of love one another, the goal of that is to restore right relationship. If we go back to what the blessed statements in the Beatitudes section of Matthew 5, it's blessed are you who are for, and then some encouragement. The idea of blessed is you are in right standing with God. You're in right standing in God when you suffer in poverty. You're in right standing with God when you're meek. You're in right standing with God when you're low in spirit. You're in right standing with God when you weep because you hunger and thirst for righteousness. You're in right standing with God. And so Jesus is continuing that vein in these teachings in this section, where he says this is what it looks like to be in right standing with God. And these are 6 areas where you can see the contrast between the kingdom of the world and the kingdom of heaven. These 6 areas he talks about. He talks about anger, right? Where he said, you have heard it taught, you shall not murder, but I tell you, if you even anger, you're not living in the new kingdom. You're not representing the ethic of love. Lust, if you've heard it said, not commit adulteries, right? He's taking the law ethic, and he's saying the new ethic of the new kingdom is if you even lust after somebody. Because he's going deeper, more significant than just don't do the wrong thing, right? And he talks about divorce and covenants. Just because you can divorce and there's a loophole and a legality and a way to spin things according to the law, you shouldn't take that lightly. And then he continues that thought when he talks about oaths. Oaths. He says, let's stop spinning things. And that's talking about using the letter of the law to manipulate people. If you look at the essence of what that is. And the way we do that now is we try really hard to manipulate what people think about us. And on an innocent level, it's everything from the clothes you wear, the makeup you wear, the way you do your hair. You're trying to present something. But where it gets dark, I think, and can get really unhealthy is the way we treat social media, right? We're desperately trying to shape what other people think about us. And what happens when we do that and we spin and we twist and we say things in a way that can mean a thing that it doesn't mean, or it's just this dishonesty, what that does is it separates us from one another. It creates division. And I think that's the reason why they call where we are in America today, this is the loneliest America has ever been. We are extremely lonely. But wait, we're so connected. We have social media. We have all these friends. I have 5,000 and some friends. They're not friends. You know, you present yourself out there, and even if all your friends like your post, you're not going to feel the joy of friendship because you know that's not the real you. The real you is somewhere over here, but because you'll explain it away. Oh, they like the fake me. They like the me I put out there. They like my resume because they don't know me, right? And this lie and spin of the truth that Jesus is teaching about here in the oaths section of Matthew 5 is all about being honest and open and letting your word stand for itself. You don't have to make effort to spin things, because then you start looking for the letter of the law to manipulate. So that's talking about oaths. And then he talks about retaliation. Like, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye, but I say what? Turn the other cheek. And then he talks about your enemies. Like, and yeah, even love your enemies. Because what good does it do to only love the lovable or love those who love you? And so when he says, what good does it do? He's trying to get us at something. He's always trying to lead us to our role as God's children is to be agents of reconciliation. And these are 6 areas where if we live out the kingdom, we can bring reconciliation by being honest and vulnerable and open with people, by honoring our word, by controlling our anger and seeing other people. And this is where the love comes in. We see other people with a heart of love and compassion, where we see their brokenness that's really bugging us right now. And instead of just being bugged and reject them, we wonder, what's going on with them? I hope they're okay. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to be kind to them. I'm going to be so kind to them when their dysfunction lashes out at me, I'm going to turn the other cheek. Because if I lash back out with them, that creates division, and we are ministers of reconciliation. And that's what Jesus means by love God and love your neighbor as yourself. As you're living life, a heart posture of love. Jesus isn't just after behavior modification for his people. There's something way more significant that he's talking about. That's why when he goes through these, he only dedicates 2 or 3 sentences to these major issues that you could write volumes of books about. He just does a few sentences because his main point is this underlying call to love others as yourself. That's what Jesus is getting at. And I would say that's what Jesus is always getting at. In all of the teachings of Jesus, in all of the exposition of Paul when he's trying to talk about the teachings of Jesus lived out in community, it's all about loving God and loving others. That's why Jesus says the greatest of these is loving God and loving others. And then he says this in Matthew 5:17. He's talking about this contrast between the law and this new covenant, the old kingdom and the new kingdom. And put that up, Mary, Matthew 5:17. He says, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. And here's something that we have done in Christian circles in the past. We try to explain this passage. Jesus is clearly saying, abolish and fulfill are opposites. Don't think I've come to abolish, I've come to fulfill. But what we do is we say abolish means this, and fulfill means to be made complete. So it makes the law complete. So the law is done, so we don't need it anymore. So it means it's abolished. Because that's the definition of abolish. Jesus didn't say, I have not come to abolish the law, but to abolish the law. So there has to be a deeper meaning here, where he says, I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill them. What he's talking about is the intent of the law. Why did people focus so much on obedience to the law? Because they thought obedience to the law would lead to right standing with God. So in the blessed are the, they would be blessed because they've been obedient. And that's the equation. And before we look at them and go, boy, those Jews sure were silly, we're the same. We slip into the same thing all the time, right? We hold others to this standard where we say, well, I'll forgive them when they humiliate themselves, humble themselves, and ask for forgiveness. Or I'll be nice to them when they're nice to me. But we, as being called to live in this new kingdom, fulfilling of the law, fulfilling of the purpose of the law, which is that we are doing our part to bring reconciliation and restoration to relationships here on earth and with God and within ourselves. When we are doing our part to do that, we're fulfilling the purpose of the law. he's saying the purpose of the law was not obedience. The purpose of the law is to fulfill the purpose of what your hope for obedience was. The fulfillment is right relationship with God and right relationship with each other. And these are the ways you do that. You keep your promises. You don't look at people as objects. You look at it as humans made in God's image. You forgive people. You serve people. You turn the other cheek. This is what restores relationships. The only way to restore broken relationship is forgiveness. There is no other way. And we are equipped and called to be those agents, those ministers of reconciliation we talked about a few weeks ago. This is the calling that we are gifted with.